is something the average salespeople is not able to do.
There's gonna be more and more volume constantly in our email inboxes and in our LinkedIn DMs. So the only way to be separate from those is being even more louder or bringing more value. So welcome, Matt, to Sellai Growth Podcast.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to get you here. We have been working a lot together, and also you are a former startup founder yourself. Tell me a bit, what have you been working on previously?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm a former entrepreneur in the SaaS industry. So what we tried to build with my ex-business partner back in the days was an Instagram growth automation tool that would basically help anyone, any business, getting some organic growth on the Instagram platform. It was very competitive, and it was a very interesting period of my life because I learned a lot about marketing, but also about sales and how to build a product from 0 to 1. So that's where, most of the knowledge that I have is coming from. But after that, I also had the opportunity to work as a freelance for many companies.
So you have been looking at growth from many angles. How do you see these kind of growth tactics have changed throughout past 5 years?
Well, I feel like it's more of a cycle than an evolution. It's like a revolution. It's always changing. And sometimes you can be doing something that is just like thinking out of the box, but it is just an old tactic that was working maybe 10 years ago. So there was the period for the email marketing. Now today it seems like we're into something more personalized, more human. But most of the times it's just cycles. Who knows, maybe in two years, what will be the best marketing channel will be sending letters to people again. So we never know.
That's true. And I feel like also many times when new technology arrives, everyone starts using it. So the first ones trying to implement it actually get the biggest benefits. But when everyone is using it, it really stops working. How do you feel about this?
Well, I feel like, of course, volume can be an issue, especially when you're addressing a promotional message to your audience. So I guess the only way and out of the crowd would be to bring more value than your own competitors. So you really need to listen to your audience, understand their needs, but also their fears in order to address them in the most convenient way.
So you consider the one wins with sales automations who brings the most value in the automation, not the one who has the biggest volume.
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes, of course, you need to go for the volume. There are some cases when your company is attending to an event or a trade show and you need to outreach to all the attendees. So you have no choice but to go for volume. But sometimes you need to pick a very specific ideal customer profile that meets certain criteria to address a more personalized message. I guess that's the way you get the most conversions in the end. So sometimes you need to go for both, but for traditional account-based marketing, of course, I would advise to go with the quality over quantity.
Yes, and it's really tricky to say. I know that you're a bit more of a volume guy than I am. I'm a bit more value side person, but I do a lot of niche B2B where there's only 50 companies in one market and I try to reach them more with high quality, which is very different than trying to reach every European company, which is 4,000 companies, and trying to sell to them. But I see that the world is going to do two directions. Applying these kind of sales automations is getting easier and easier, which means more people are going to do it, which means there's going to be more and more volume constantly in our email inboxes and in our LinkedIn DMs. So the only way to be separate from those is being even more louder or bringing more value in your sales process. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. I guess it's the same for cold emails. Like 5 years ago, it was very easy to do some cold emailing without even personalizing your message. And today, it's a very rough channel from a sales outreach perspective. So of course, you need to adapt to these changes.
Yes. Talking about personalization, what do you mean when you say personalization?
Well, personalization can be two things. It can be regarding the audience, the prospect you're outreaching to, but it can also be some context. For example, in terms of context, sometimes the best way to send a personalized message is to feel human. The reason for that is people will, of course, maybe not prefer to answer to a LinkedIn audio message, but of course they will listen to the one LinkedIn voice message they received in their inbox over the tons of traditional, hey, I love your work, let's buy something together. So this is for the context part, but when it comes to the person, yes, you want this to be personalized, and of course you want a nice icebreaker. Because if we're talking about the same sales approach, we're talking cold outreach, and for this to work, we need to have a nice icebreaker. Could be about the person, could be about the company, could be about an event or something you're sharing together. But this is something very important.
Yes. And today, like the personalization, it's just not enough to put like, hey, insert a name here, and then the script that you send to 4,000 other companies.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It would be very hard to go that way.
Yeah. What I feel like about personalization is basically what you said, but in different words, is that personalization is something that you personally wanted to be in contact with that person. So that's the feeling that you want to create. And you do it with two things. One, you create good focus to your campaign. So it feels like, okay, this was personal message to me. And the second one is exactly what you said. You make it sound and feel organic. You make it sound human. You make yourself to be more trustworthy because you are a real person. That means it should be real LinkedIn profile. It should not be spammy. It should be, the message should be interesting. It should create some value to the customer so they actually, take a bite to the hook. And the problem with that approach is, though, that you have to do a lot of work in advance and there's no guarantee of results. So it's easier to just blast everyone.
Yeah. That's why here we're talking about automation, maybe human automation, rather than using bots to send message. Because I believe LinkedIn is a very good platform for people to network together. That's also the reason why you cannot have more than 30k people in your network. Basically, it's not about sending someone a request. It is more about creating a connection, as you said. So when it comes to that, you definitely want to bring as much value as possible to those connections. You need to make them feel special. And that's
True.
what the automation, because it's multi-channel. It is something the average salespeople is not able to do. Like to have a multi-channel outreach people for everyone, it's hard to keep with the delays, the deadlines, make sure you're not following up too quickly to a previous message. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. What do you think, like talking how difficult something is, what do you think is the most difficult part of creating multi-channel, well-converting sales automations in B2B? What's the most difficult part?
I think the most difficult part, and it would be the part that is outsourced most of the time, is the lead generation, like the generation of a list of prospects. That would be the most challenging one because it requires some skills. You need to have good databases and you need to make sure these emails are deliverable. So I would say this is the most difficult part. But the most easy one is obviously launch a campaign, and this is pretty easy.
Yes, yes. How do you feel about copy text or writing and recording that content and coming up with the valuable message to approach the person?
Yeah, I think the best advice I got from the people that teach me the multi-channel outreach is to not overthink it, not make it very complex. Try to make it as human as possible. You can make mistakes in your text as well. You can add a bit of humor. You need to really make the person feel special, not because they are special, but because in their inbox you're different and you feel more human than the rest of the messages the prospect got.
How I see it is that the prospect list and the copy text and the value proposition, they are all linked together. So if you have a value proposition, you should have right kind of like prospect list, and then you already know what you want to be talking about, but you have to be providing value already in the first message. So if you change one of those, like if you change the list, you really should think about, is this still the same value proposition that I want to talk about to this list? I think that's something why a lot of companies just slip to be very generic with their messaging, because they just try to pump the list and create more list and bigger list and bigger list, and then they make a lot of these kind of like generalizations to their copy text, like, okay, let's be super generic so we can send it to everyone, and that really doesn't convert.
That is 100% true.
A bit over a year ago, ChatGPT came out, and my first thought was that this is going to really increase the quality of sales messages and in sales automations, because you can create amazing copy text with that. But I feel like it didn't help at all. I feel like the volume just increased, but not the quality of these sales automations. Do you agree, or what's your thoughts on this?
The thing is with ChatGPT, I'm sure it's gonna go somewhere very nice someday. Still, at this point today, it's not something that changed my life. For example, if you ask ChatGPT to create a meme, funny meme, it cannot do something as good as a human. So we're not at this point yet. What I love to, I mean, I love to use the ChatGPT more for data entry, like in Google Sheets or Excel, whenever it comes to making small decisions based on some criteria. And with a very simple prompt, you can get very simple results. But when you have to done it like 100 of times, yeah, it's great to use AI at this point. And that's what I've been doing for a few months now.
Yeah, I've been using ChatGPT to create my copy texts, but uh, it's still me very active part thinking about like why this is super important to my customers. I use ChatGPT to get ideas, be faster at what I'm doing, but still in the end of the day, someone needs to think about, how can I be relevant to this group of people with my sales automation? Better you are at being relevant to that group of people using ChatGPT or whatever, but better you are at being relevant to that group of people, you will win.
Totally. I cannot agree more with you. Like ChatGPT is a leverage. It's not going to replace you, so
Yeah.
it helps you go quick.
Talking about sales automation, and especially when we talk about B2B sales automation and niche B2B sales automation, is it something that you usually do once and then it's built and then it just keeps going, or is it something that you need to constantly be able to build from ground up?
Well, my favorite tool for multi-channel outreach is a French SaaS tool called La Growth Machine, which means it's a machine. So you need to fuel it with inputs. And these inputs could be spontaneous, like you can put some prospects every once in a while when you have an event or you want to launch a new campaign. But it's definitely something that can be automated as part of a sequence. Depending on the opportunities your company gets, you can make sure to fuel this machine with new leads and new prospects. So, yeah, it's something that can be dynamic and continuous. Totally.
Yeah, do you feel like it should be dynamic, or is it even possible to create this kind of forever lasting B2B sales automations in?
Yeah, totally. One simple example. Let's say you have one tool on your website that allows you to identify those companies that are checking your website on a daily or weekly basis. You can totally have something with Zapier or Make that allows you to identify the key decision makers, the people from these companies checking your website, and then automatically import them in the language machine. It's just one sequence that you need to build, and then it's on autopilot, and you just wait for the replies. You still need
Yeah.
to.
So basically, you're sending to these people who visit your website, like, "Hi, I saw that someone from your company was visiting our website. Would you like to get a quote?" or something like that. It can be very friendly. Like, is there something that you want to know? And you can make a sequence that you send them LinkedIn DMs and emails after
Yeah,
visiting the website.
it is so great because if you're able to build such a machine or that allows you to really understand your ICP and make this automatic, then you just wait for the replies. And sometimes it's just an out of office reply that you get. But in the signature of this email, you get the phone number of your prospect, and then you can just directly call them when they're back from
Yeah.
holiday. So it's yeah, just bonus.
One funny mind game that I like to think about when considering automations to your company is try to observe things that happens in real life, for an example, in real store, and try to bring that same experience and automate it to your web store or to your B2B website. And this is basically an automation where a customer walks into the store, the bell rings at the door, and the salesperson comes in and says like, how can I help you? And or ask them like, okay, thank you for visiting, did you have fun? Like those are the things that we can automate in B2B businesses. But there's a ton. One good example that I love is Google reviews. If we have a happy customer, if we already have like strong customer base, we can have a different automation to try to get every one of them give us 5-star rating in Google. And we know, and the reason why I'm saying this is sales automation is that we know that having a good rating in Google actually increases your sales. So it's not about automating that outbound emails only, it's about being super relevant to these different groups of people, and that's something that you have to constantly keep in your mind.
Yeah, as you said, multi-channel outreach obviously it works great for sales, but not only. If you're interested in this, you can build sequences for getting reviews, referrals, trying to find partnerships as well. So it's definitely something you can use a lot.
Definitely. Okay. Thank you, Matt, so much for joining me today. I hope we can do this again soon. Been super interesting to listen to your ideas and see you in action creating these multi-channel automations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.